And how long have you been in Guadeloupe?
It's been a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, a year and a half, but it was so not decided, so not planned. And I'm so grateful because I initially came for what was meant to be a 6 week, 3 weeks remote work and 3 weeks vacation. And in the middle of that, my company says, well, we want to extend remote work. And I was like, okay, remote work, middle of COVID. COVID situation was bad. And just the mere thought of me, I'm a single mom, the mere thought of me going back to Paris in my flat alone with my 2 kids for what could be another lockdown, I was like, no, I just couldn't. I just couldn't. So I was like, can I stay a little bit longer? They said yes. So I enrolled the kids. That was so not planned. And you know what? I'm the kind of person I like planning well in advance. Zoe, I took the decision in 48 hours.
Wow.
I was like, realistically, if you're going back to France, okay, I mean, your kids will be happy because they're going to see their mates and everything. But you, mentally, will you be able to cope? And I was like, I can't. I can't. I said, you're going to leave your family, your loved ones, the quality of life. 48 hours, I decided we're staying, enrolling them to school. And each time I was thinking of moving, I was thinking, oh my God, finding a new school and the children making new friends. And you know what? When you're at the right place at the right time, everything falls into place. Within 48 hours, I found the school. 48 hours before school year, I found the uniforms. And it was, everything fell into place and it was just fantastic. And this is how we ended up staying. And then I negotiated a little bit more because it was until December 2021. And then we had the company put in place a remote policy where they were saying basically, you don't have to go back to the office if you don't want to, as long as you're staying in your country of employment. And lucky for me, Guadeloupe, it's kind of a French region. So I was lucky enough and fortunate enough that they said, well, the work is being done. The quality of work is still there. People are not complaining. And anyway, most people, already relocated to other cities in France. So we were used to work. So they said, okay, so you can stay as long as you want. And this is me staying.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. What a gift. What a gift.
I'm fortunate. I feel blessed and fortunate, especially for my kids, to see them happy.
Yeah.
To feel like they belong, discovering their culture, to live with their grandma, to see their grandpa every day. No, it's a blessing.
Yeah. So your story is really unusual because a lot of people, they sort of had moving in the back of their mind. They weren't sure. They had lots of fears, lots of doubts, and all of this stuff that ends up building a really long runway to moving. But for you, had you ever considered Guadeloupe? And if you did, what sort of thoughts were going through your mind?
To be honest, my parents divorced. So my dad was the first one to move back to Guadeloupe in 2008. My mom returned, I think, about 10 years ago. And I never, I was born and raised in Paris. For me, Guadeloupe was you're going back every year to visit your grandma, your uncles, your cousins. I know Guadeloupe very well, but I never envisioned myself living there. But then, the older you get, and every time it's getting a little bit harder to go back. But I was still, I had the old question of, okay, even if you wanted to go back, what about your job? What about your children? What about everything? And then with COVID, it all made sense. And I think the fear of, when you're far away from your family, you have that fear of the call during the night telling you something happened. And I think that motivated me to say, your parents are not getting any younger. Now is the time. How lucky you are to have this opportunity. How many people have this opportunity of keeping their job and being able to live near their relatives and make that move? And it was a safe move for me. That's why I'm very fortunate. It was a safe move because I'm living with my mom. She's got a big house. The only thing I had to do was to ship my car, and then to decide after a year, once I was 100% sure that we were all happy, then I gave the notice for my flat last summer. But I never, for me, Guadeloupe was like, well, maybe when I retired. And COVID came and, you know, it was like, okay, no, the time is now. The time is now.
I love that. And before, when we were talking, I was asking you what the situation, what you're noticing the environment is like for folks of Caribbean descent in France. Because typically on the Exodus Collective, we focus on people who've left the UK or have left North America, but we haven't read maybe one or two people from France. But what are you noticing? Is there like a growing interest in moving back? Like have you noticed it change over COVID and everything else that's happened?
Yes, I think COVID accelerated that. What I'm seeing is like young people who left Guadeloupe because not enough opportunity and not enough choices in terms of university choice, not enough opportunity in terms of employment, who said, okay, now COVID is there, I need to go home. I need to be with my family. And people like me saying, well, I've never lived there, but maybe the timing is right. And I think there's this whole generation, young and older generation, who really want to give back to the community, give back to the people and say, okay, we left the island, or maybe we don't know the island, but we've acquired skills, knowledge, everything, and we want to share and we want to grow. And there's so many things to build, because I had a glimpse of what Guadeloupe is, and now it's funny how my mind is changing. Now I really want to, you know, to share what I have learned whilst being abroad in London, my language skills. I'm in charge of global mobility. I'm like, you know, this is something that I could share with youngsters at university. There's so many things, but yes, definitely, I'm seeing a lot of initiatives on the internet, on people writing blogs, on how to move back to Guadeloupe. And there was an after work, I think I went there a couple of weeks ago, and it was about returning to Guadeloupe, and we were about 400 people.
Wow.
Sharing how some managed to come back, some that were willing to come back, and it was a great energy, and it was an opportunity to share, you know, maybe the anxiety, the fear, and say, okay, it's not easy, but nothing is easy. But yes, definitely I can see what, I'm not going to call it a movement, but the synergy saying, yeah, it's time for us to go home.
That's really beautiful. And tell me a little bit more what that looks like for you in terms of, I don't know if I can class you as a returnee or not, but we will, because originally that's where your parents were born. But what are you noticing? Are there sort of spaces where people might co-work, or are events like what happened the other day quite frequent? What is it looking like? If someone turns up and is like, okay, how do I fit in? Where do I belong? What is the experience like?
I think it really depends on what you're into, to be honest. So you have, for instance, my case, if I want to work outside of the house, I'll go to hotels. We have a couple of spots where you can co-work. I'm seeing a lot of people renting houses sometimes, and they work together. But you have people that are more into going to the beach in the morning and then work. You have people going, it really depends on what they're into. But definitely what I'm seeing so many initiatives like cafes being built around where people can have lunch, but people can work. And I'm seeing a lot of co-working events as well. And what I'm seeing, and this is why I'm into, we're missing out on opportunities, is because English is not our language. Our main language is French and Creole. And I'm seeing so many missed opportunities because we don't master English. And I'm like, there's so many people who may want to come to Guadeloupe, but because it's not common, they might not want to come. And they should, because it's a great island, and the infrastructure is, there's still things to be done. But however, we're getting there. We're getting there, definitely.
I love it. Okay, so sell Guadeloupe to me. Why should I come to Guadeloupe? If I can co-work somewhere or remote work for 3 months, why should I choose Guadeloupe? What's the style?
I think what I like about Guadeloupe is because you've got two parts. You've got Grande Terre and Basse Terre. Grande Terre, where I live, is very touristy, white sand beaches. But when you go to Grande Terre, it's very green. So you're into adventure, kind of wild forest. You can go there. And this is what I like about Guadeloupe. An hour drive, and you can go from one white sand beach and then land somewhere very green, very foresty. And this is what I like about Guadeloupe. You have so many things that you can see in one space, and there's so many places that have been done really nicely. Where, for instance, where there's a river, I can't remember the name, and it was so difficult to access it, and now they made everything much more accessible for people to go to. People are welcoming, and once again, there's so many things being done, whether it's Airbnb, whether it's co-working, whether it's things about culture. We've got tuk-tuk tour, we've got, and many of these initiatives were done by people returning to Guadeloupe, not only, but people returning to Guadeloupe. So I think, yeah, I mean, we're lost. Well, I'm not going to say we're lost in the middle of the Caribbean, us and Martinique, like the non-English speakers. But I think people should really come. Really, I've bumped into a couple of Canadians, because my son discovered he was so against sports, and now the boy is into surfing big time.
Wow.
This is what I love the Caribbean as well, because surfing in France, unless you live south of France, and even that the weather is not that great. And I bumped into these two Canadian, and they were like, "Oh my God, we're so lucky we bumped into you, because there's so many things that we wanted to do, but we were not sure." And so I had an online PDF book that I shared with them about things that they could do, and they were so happy, and they were like, "Yeah, Guadeloupe is a nice island, and it's a pity that we don't hear enough." And this is what I want that to change as well. I want to promote Guadeloupe, because really, it's a great, obviously I'm going to say it's lame, but it's somewhere magical. To me, it's magical.
Yeah.
And I'm discovering my island every single day. And I'm like, wow, I've never seen that. I didn't know that. And this is the beauty of it.
Yeah, no, from what I see just looking online, it does seem really rich culturally in a way that you might not experience as much in some of the English-speaking islands. Is it on New Year's Day, there's a special sea bath that people do? I was like seeing some pictures of that.
Yes, and now we're starting the carnival. So the groups started going out on Sunday. So now it's a special atmosphere as well. And yeah, really, as you said, culturally, historically, it's rich, and people are very happy to share their history and culture. And this is one thing that I found really amazing, is that people are really, in terms of culture, this is something I didn't know about Guadeloupe, because to me, Guadeloupe was more into, yeah, you want to go to the beach, you want to park. And now I'm discovering a very rich culture, and people really interested about art, about, even classical music, even so many things. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is Guadeloupe now.
I love that. I love that. And so for your children, what were their initial thoughts about not returning to France? How did they, and how old are they, and how do they handle that? Because I would love to know, because yeah.
That was tough. So my daughter was 11 and my son 14. So I told the kids, okay, mommy need to talk to you. My daughter was like, oh my God, what are you going to say? So I said, okay, we're not returning. And my daughter instantly started crying, because she was going to enter secondary school, and said, you ruined my life. And I'm going to miss my friend. This is the one thing that could have maybe changed my mind, seeing my daughter crying. And my son was like, well, it can be an experience. So it was really tough, but I think they were lucky, I mean, in a sense, lucky enough that because it was in the midst of full COVID crisis, they started school, because it's a massive school. We're talking 1,200 in secondary. It's massive. But they were lucky enough that due to the restrictions, it was only a half day, maybe twice a week, and half class. So they had time to adjust, and lucky for them, it was the only year where they could be the two of them in secondary school, because it was my son's final. So when I'm telling you, when something is supposed to happen, because it was meant to be. So it helped that they were in the same school. It helped that it was half class, and people are more welcoming. And my daughter, she's very, so I'm from Guadeloupe, and their dad is from Senegal. So my daughter's a bit darker skin, and she was very fully aware of that when she was in France, and very concerned. And once I saw the girl in the midst of all, he was looking at all these little black girls. When they tell you that representation matters, I saw a different girl. I saw the way now she talks, she handles it, you can feel like she belongs. And my son, I didn't have many male representation when I was in Paris. But now I have my dad, he has uncles, he has cousins, and for them, they feel, I'm not going to say that they may not miss their friends, that they don't call their friends anymore. They have new friends, they have new surroundings. And I thought it was going to be tougher, but it's been okay. But then again, I have my family. So that's one thing that, it could have gone wrong because we're living with my mom. They get to see my dad, they get to experience new things. And it's not like I left the job, didn't have money. There are some circumstances that can make the move really, really hard. And because they knew Guadeloupe quite well, that's something as well. I ensure that every year, if possible, we would come to Guadeloupe. So they were very much into the culture. So it wasn't like like brand new discovery of, oh my God, where we're landing. But yeah, I was lucky. I was very fortunate. Now, if you tell my son go back to Paris, it will be like, I'm not sure.
Wow, I love that. That is amazing. And so what were some of the things that you had to deal with that others might sort of struggle to navigate? Whether it's, I mean, obviously finding somewhere to live, that was sorted, but
Yes.
schools for your children, other things that
Yes.
needed to be adjusted. What were some of
Well,
the...
yeah, because we had to, I had to give the notice to the former school to enroll them in the new school. Basically, in France, depending on where you live, you have to go to a certain school. So you have to do that. That's the one thing. If you have specific needs or specific, you need to double check the kind of school that you would like. But for instance, what I didn't know, what I found out, there is a new bilingual school, English school as well. And they didn't have that before. But you need to ensure what you want. We have private schools as well. But we have, what do you call that? Normal school. So it really depends on where you live. The only thing, and to me, that's really the downside of the move to Guadeloupe is the kids' independence. Where we were in Paris, they could walk to school. Whereas now, it's a whole different story because so now they're older. So now my son is in a vocational school, but the school is a bit far away. So he has to take the school bus. School starts at 7. At what time does school start in Grenada?
My kids' school starts at 8 a.m.
Okay. So here it's 7 a.m.
Wow.
The school bus is at 5:40.
Wow.
So I have to wake up at 4:30, drop him off, then return, then pick up my daughter, drop her off. It's not too far, but there's a lot of coming back and forth. And this is something where you have to be fully aware of, is that there's not many colleges and stuff like that. So sometimes you have to drive, you have to rely on school buses. And this is one of the downsides. I wasn't used to that. I was used to, my mom, they walked to school and that was it for me. Whereas now is a bit different. Where they come to that age is a bit different. So that's the only thing you have to be aware of is choose where you want to live, not too far from the school you want to be in.
Nice. Yeah.
This is something to keep in mind. And also I found out that there is a relocation, one or two, or one at least, a relocation company that helps people who want to relocate to Guadeloupe. I found out about that.
Oh,
So
fantastic. We should put the link to that in the description because yeah, this year I'm very much about one, inspiring people, but helping people take action because yeah.
Yes, and if people want to know more about Guadeloupe, I'm here. So I'm part of the French, there's an English speakers group as well in Guadeloupe that we do a kind of meet up. And people are very friendly, and as long as you're willing to to feel part of the people and everything, I think it's fine. But once again, if you don't speak French, it can be a bit tough.
Right. Yeah. And
So
so
the language thing is maybe the tricky part.
yeah, well, no, it's always good to adjust, and it's never too late to learn another language. But for those folks who are in France thinking, I'd love to come back to Guadeloupe, but I haven't been there in a long time, maybe the family connections aren't as tight as they once were, and it feels like something new, something like a completely new journey. What would you advise? Like, whether it's sort of business opportunities that they might want to start up, or anything that you would advise to make it feel less daunting to take that leap and consider moving?
I would say there is no better time than now, because the more you're going to think about it, you will find 100 of excuses and not to do it. Having said that, the money, if you are leaving your job behind, it's good to have some savings. Especially if you want your freedom, you don't want to leave your family, you have to make sure that you have some kind of, saving account, a bit of money, so at least it gives you time to find a job. But there's so many things, the thing is, you can work for a company, but now with the whole entrepreneurship, innovation, you can work here, but for another country. So this is a world of opportunity. Now with COVID, we've seen that work is not being in an office. Work is about having your laptop and the global mobility manager side of me saying, well, be careful with the tax and stuff like that. However, now there's so many things that you can do that if you feel like you want to do it, just go ahead and do it. Ask questions, of course, and be sure of your why you want to go back, because it's not just a question of getting up and go. But don't ask yourself too many questions, because the more questions you ask yourself, the more the anxiety and the fear come up. And the thing is, I said, there's so many initiatives, there's so many people now that you can reach out to and ask questions. But now you can't say that you're going to Guadeloupe and you don't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible. It's impossible. You have way too many information, people to reach out to, organizations, initiatives that helps in that way. But definitely the older Cynthia would have said, oh, no, take your time. The new Cynthia is saying, no. The good time is now.
Nice.
The good time is stand up and do what you have to do.
Yeah, I love that. And in terms of you, what difference has it made to you? One, in terms of your well-being, in terms of your family, but also the direction that you see yourself going. Has being in Guadeloupe given you perhaps different ideas with regards to your career or what you invest your time into? How has that changed?
A lot. As I said before, I was very a person, very square, if I can say, very Parisian in the sense that, okay, the time is now, this is that. And in the Caribbean, you learn that you need to chill.
Mm.
Chill, because there's you and there's the time. So I'm learning to say, okay, even if it doesn't go according to my plan, it will happen eventually. I'm learning to let go. The stress freak me is learning to let go. And in the end, I'm like, okay, so you were stressing out, but in the end, even though it's not 100% of what you were expecting, but it worked out. I'm learning to listen more to my inner thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about, okay, I love my job, but I could see myself doing something else. As I said, giving back to my community. Definitely even more family orientated. Even more aware of sustainability, the environment, because I'm seeing in the space of 1 year, so it's scary actually, because now it's raining, like really raining, and this is not the rainy season. It's not supposed to rain that much, and it's raining a lot, and I'm thinking, wow, climate. Something that now that I'm closer to nature, I'm becoming more aware of what we've done to our planets. And I'm thinking twice about what I'm doing on a daily basis, but definitely more in touch with myself, and definitely more chilled and learning to live a day. It's still a struggle, but learning to live a day at a time, which I wasn't used to. So
Yeah.
this is the new me is definitely more relaxed. Still a bit of sometimes tension, but learning to relax. Everything's gonna happen. Maybe not the way you want it to happen, but it will happen eventually. So that's what lives done to me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think exactly the same as you, being in a different space where things go at a slower pace, where you're kind of surrounded by nature, it does make you have to adjust. You can't go at that big city pace. You're going to sweat, and two, everyone around you is just doing things differently. And you're like, okay, why not surrender to it? And
Yeah. And I went back to Paris end of September just for 4 or 5 days. And as soon as I landed, just to see the gray sky, buildings everywhere, people rushing. I got so stressed out, and I was like, oh my God, I was born and raised there, but now this is becoming so alien to me. And I was happy to see my colleagues, but I was so happy to fly back to Guadeloupe. And for the first time, I felt like this is home.
Yeah.
Before I was like, I'm happy to be there, but in end of September, when the plane landed, I felt like, okay, now this is home. I don't know how long I'm going to stay in Guadeloupe. And you know what? For the first time, I don't care. But I feel like I'm at the right place at the right time. And I feel like this is home, regardless of what I will do. Even if I've moved somewhere else, I know that Guadeloupe is my home now. And it's no longer Paris, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel the same thing about Grenada. Someone was saying to me today, how long do you think you'll stay here? Do you think you'll stay here forever? And I said, I don't know, but 100% this is my base. Like, I'm from here. I will always be from here. I may be living somewhere else, but this is the center. And it's lovely when you find that place and when you see it working for your children as well.
Yes, to me, once again, as a single mom, there's been so many rough times, and just to be like, okay, if anything happens to me, I can be sick. So my body can release itself. Before I was like, okay, you cannot be sick because who's going to look after? Now I'm like, okay, whatever happens, you've got your mom. And I feel just that, I felt so much more relaxed. They've grown up as well, but just having the proximity of the family, yeah, it has lifted a lot on my shoulder, a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's such a pleasure. And I think you and I went before when we spoke about how unfortunate is it that there's this linguistic divide between a part of the Caribbean, whereas so many of the experiences, culture, it's so the same. So I like the fact that we're having this conversation, and I'm sure there should be ways to explore more about how we can connect from island to island.
Yes, definitely. We'll stay connected because I've started this program on entrepreneurship. I don't know where I'm going to land with that. However, I know for sure that it will have to do with English and being more in touch with, our cousin islands, and about opening opportunities for youngsters here. For sure, I will work on that, definitely, and I will go to Grenada. I'm going on a trip this year, and I'll spend 1 day in Grenada. So hopefully we can catch up.
We have to catch up. We have to catch up for sure. Well, Cynthia, it's been such a pleasure speaking to you, and you've given us such a wealth of information. And I'll make sure to put links to all the resources below so that folks have those directions if they decide to make the move. But yeah, I love what you're doing. I love that thing of just following your instincts, that it was the move that was going to make sense. And it sounds like it's working out. And I'd love to keep in touch because the entrepreneurship thing is really, the time is now. The time really is now.
Yes, but thanks again. I've already said it, but thanks again for doing this for us. Thanks for this initiative. Thanks for giving us this opportunity to share and to move back to our islands. And yeah, definitely a pleasure to talk to you finally. And yeah, for all the people who want to visit Guadeloupe, they're more than welcome to contact me.